welcome back. We've been talking a lot about movies. Apparently some people talk about TV shows.
Apparently. Slip of the tongue, doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever. But we're also going to talk about something else that we think is really related to movies, and that is books. We love books, both of us on there. We have big collections.
You see my bookshelf behind me all the time.
Someday we'll do an episode in front of my bookshelf.
Yeah, exactly.
Looking forward to that day. So we're going to talk about a book today.
Yeah, what book is that, Daniel?
Well, the book that I read last month that I was like, this is a book I want to talk about and I want to reference people to. It's called The Universe Next Door. Subtitle, A Basic Worldview Catalog. Author, James W. Shire.
That is a mouthful. Okay.
Basic Worldview Catalog, Universe Next Door.
Okay.
Anyway, it's about worldviews, as the title implies. And actually, it's interesting because worldview as a concept has kind of been around pretty recently now, but this book is written in the 70s. And it's been put about a lot of college campuses. So I think it's pretty influential in understanding what a worldview is. And it's also been updated, so this book was updated pretty recently on there. It talks about worldviews. What I really appreciate about it, I've studied worldview before, but this book does, I think, really well, is it traces the history of thought. How have worldviews changed, and how have, as a one dominant worldview in the culture, produced other worldviews that follow on there. That's kind of what I took away from it that I thought was really interesting. It is written from a Christian perspective, this book, but I think it does it in a very intelligent way, and I think it gives a great overview of what is Christianity if someone's looking for that on there, but someone could be non-Christian and still, I think, find this book interesting. Cool.
What questions do you have for me?
Yeah, so with you and worldview on there, can you, I look at worldview as a lens that you see the world through. Do you think of it the same way?
Well, yes. I mean, everyone definitely has a different worldview to them. I guess we've kind of discussed this off camera a little bit, which is I don't know how much I think about that when I do it. I don't think most people do. I think it's just like, this is how I view the world. They don't actually sit down and like, this is my exact worldview. If I had to think about it, I probably would put myself pretty squarely in the humanist camp, and that's how I kind of look at it, that humanity is basically good, and that there is terrible things that happen, but humanity is basically good, and we're trying to work towards that. And because of that, that's usually why I don't really like super negative or nihilistic.
Like Blade Runner.
No, we love Blade Runner. But no, like, I guess my example would be more of, say, like the Saw films, which is with his death and dismemberment, and the only reason this film is existing is for you to see people be picked off and killed. And there's really no comment on that. It's just killer, and we're going to kill people off. And I don't really respond to that. It's like, no, there's more to humanity than just people being killed off like that.
So then, based on that, one of the things I liked about James W. Shire's book is that he illustrates the examples of worldview from art and movies and music. He does it really well. He studied English in all 3 degrees that he took.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, I know, ridiculous.
I am inadequate to talk about this subject.
Basically. But my question is, as a writer yourself, a filmmaker, wannabe, whatever, you're working on it, do you find that as a humanist, then, is that the worldview that permeates your writing?
It's weird. I mean, everyone's going to have a different answer to that, too. I actually find when I start doodling or working on my stuff, it's usually characters pop into my head that challenge that worldview a little bit, and I'm writing against it sometimes. So it's like, this is the character that is like anti this point of view, and I'm trying to fit him into this story and trying to kind of comment on that at the same time. Really, the plot and the characters have to be serviced in the story. I can't just make something happen, or I try not to let that happen, at least. You'd have to read and see if you agree with my statement. Children's book will be available sometime this year. Plug. Buy stuff is what I'm trying to say. I'm a consumerist. I'm a consumerist
that's your
and total capitalist.
There you go.
But I don't know, after reading this book, did your worldview change at all? Or how did it inform your worldview that you currently have?
That's an interesting question. Well, I think I mentioned this before, that it's the history of thought in terms of how worldviews change was an aspect that, because he is writing in my worldview as someone that I agree with many things, but it was more figuring out, so here's an example, humanism from there. If you look at that from an evolutionary perspective, the world's getting better all the time. One of the arguments that he makes is that this is a dominant worldview around the time of the First World War, like just before on there. And then the world wars came and it kind of broke down.
It did,
And then after that we have nihilism and we have
modernism, postmodernism, all
that
kind
exactly.
of stuff.
And he kind of goes through that. These are different ways. Either you just deny that anything good is happening and you just live for the moment, or there's other solutions to it, which could be postmodernism.
See, this makes me want to read this book
Eastern
even
stuff.
more because,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, a lot of my favorite books are from like the right after the post-war period.
Okay, dealing with that problem.
Dealing with that problem,
Yeah.
it's like I just saw the utter depravity of humanity
Yeah.
right now, and how do I reconcile that? Because I just saw the worst possible things that
How do you
that humans
reconcile that?
could.
You didn't see it.
Well, yeah, for me personally, as terrible as life can be,
Right.
and it's not a matter of just think positive thoughts, because that I don't think works either. I think sometimes you need to
There's
seek
a
the help.
unicorn running over there.
Yes,
With
and
a rainbow on
rainbows
it.
and lollipops, and everything is perfect.
Yeah.
I think you have to be realistic about where you are in life.
Right.
But I don't think that you can hold accountable one or even just a group of people for the entire world.
Right.
I think that the majority of people, yes, are actually good, and there is
Okay.
a subsection that are evil here in the world, and it is our job to recognize that and help humanity pass those transgressions.
Okay. So then the argument, I guess, that Shire makes in the first chapter, where she talks about theistic deism, so believing that there's a creator on there, is that, well, yeah, the world's good because the creator's good that made it. Human beings are the ones that are flawed, and that's why we have this ebb and flow of these
And
things
he's
going
given
on.
us free will, right? So we can kind of just do whatever the heck we want.
Yeah, he goes into that, because obviously
Yeah.
there's different ideas in Christianity as to how that works on there, but that's the basic idea, is that he gives us freedom to do what we want, but we're fallen creatures, and he's redeeming us, is the idea. So it's an interesting book in that it takes that, and it takes the history of thought, and it looks at how these basic questions that Kyle is wrestling with right now, clearly.
Physically wrestling. I have them
Physically
in a,
wrestling with.
in a
But,
chokehold.
you're a writer, you're dealing with these themes, we watch movies like Blade Runner, we're dealing with these
Yeah.
themes. It's important to work our way through it and realize that these are answers to this question, or trying to
Yeah.
be, or should be.
This is a good time to plug that we talked about Blade Runner in our last
Yeah,
video.
if
So you
you
should
haven't
go and
noticed,
watch that.
watch that.
I wish we had like an hour to just delve into this
I wish
topic,
too.
but no one would watch that
Nobody
video.
watched that video.
No one's watched this video, so there you go.
There you go.
We have all these social media things
Yeah.
that you can go to.
I
That's
think we'll
up on
link to the book below. Will we
You
do
should
that?
link to
Yeah.
the book below.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me,
Good,
because as I'm
good.
editing this,
Yeah.
this will jog my
Yeah,
memory
he
to do
edits
that.
everything. I just talk.
Yeah,
It's true.
Next,
Okay.
next week will be somewhere
Watching
else.
something else. Yeah, somewhere else, watching with something else.
A mall, in front of
Tune
a
in,
bookstore,
a bookshelf,
in front of a burning building,
park.
whatever.
Who knows?
The depravity of humanity will be behind us next
Yeah,
week.
burning. Literally burning.
All right, see ya.
Bye.